SJ. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stongo, Gary Five, Jaho, Jeff Gados. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio. Come on, silly. I forget it. Welcome to our program here on this wet, cold, rainy, Okmulgee morning. Thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate you joining us here. We are going to be speaking to a couple of different things here this morning. First of all, we have staff members from our TANF program, folks who probably are more popular these days and in times of economic crisis. And then in the second half, we'll be speaking with my boss, Angel Ellis, about her recent trip to the Sundance Film Festival. Mvskoke's battle for freedom of the press was the subject of a film that was part of their competition. She'll tell me what it was like. And sitting in our studio is Braden Harper, who is our brand new managing editor. And we're going to fix that real fast. And then he'll be joining us for our second half discussion, or whenever he feels like it again. So welcome all. We appreciate you all being here and taking time. Thank you for coming in. Let's start off with kind of an idea of what your program is all about for people who aren't familiar with TANF. What does that stand for, and what is your mission? Lauren, you want to lead off there?
Good morning. Thank you for having us. I'm Lauren Randall, and I'm the Case Management Supervisor for the Mvskoke Creek Nation Tribal TANF program. And our program is designed to help low-income families. We offer monthly cash assistance grants, and the amount that they receive every month is based on their family size. And in addition to that monthly grant, we have two different kinds of cases. So we've got a needy family case, so that's like a parent with dependent children under the age of 18, and then we have child-only cases, and those are caretaker relatives, so grandparents with custody of their grandchildren, or any kind of situation similar to that.
First of all, tell us what TANF stands for.
So it's temporary assistance to needy families, or native families, we like to say.
Yeah, sometimes they're one and the same.
Yes.
Okay, Mark Pendergrass is a program manager with that department. Now, what is your job? And are you like boots on the ground handling cases?
I am, of course, like I said, I'm the manager, so I kind of oversee the whole program and make sure that we do stay in compliance with our federal guidelines. Lauren since she's a case manager supervisor, she's more the person who, she does interact more with the case managers and with the public. I do get involved. A lot of times whenever one of our participants may get mad, and so they'll call me, but I do get involved with some of the decisions if they have questions with the program. There are employees, our staff, and so we have about 23 staff, so we do have to get involved sometime.
Well, let me explore that. That's an intriguing thought. People get mad at you. Now, what are these unruly discussions, shall we call them? What are those all about? Somebody not getting enough or not qualifying, or what's the argument there?
A lot of times it's someone may not agree with what our guidelines are. Mm-hmm. Our guidelines, since we are federally funded, we do have a strict policy that we have to follow, especially with TANF. Since, like I said, we are 100% federally funded, we do have to have certain documentation submitted to our program to be eligible to stay on the program. A lot of times, some participants, may not agree with that. And, unfortunately, in order for us to keep our funding, we do have to ask for certain documentation. And there are some participants, who may not agree with how they receive the assistance as far as having to do the hours. Our program does require hours to be completed if they are what we call a family case. They do have to complete at least 20 or 30 hours a week to stay in compliance with the program.
And when we say hours, what do we mean? Like community service sort of things?
Well, we call them work participation hours. So that it could include going to actually having a full-time job, part-time job, or doing, what is that called? Work experience, going to school, anything that can help them become self-sufficient. If it's going to help them get some kind of training to be self-sufficient, then that's what we will count as hours.
It almost sounds like half our media staff. Now, when we let me go one step further now. When people are upset about having to prove their situation, does that lead to maybe uncovering something like people trying to fake their way through it or giving you false information?
We do have some people who do apply, and one of our main thing is for our family cases, we are income based. And so in order to be eligible, you do have to meet a certain income criteria. And so a lot of that we have seen where people do come in, they don't report all the income to us.
Okay.
And so we do see that, and we do find out. So we do unfortunately have to deny them, or if they get on the program, we find out later, then we do deem it as fraud. And then their case will close, and they'll be closed for at least 6 months before they can reapply again.
Well, they have to be careful because you're messing around with federal money, and they
Yes.
take a pretty dim view of that sort of thing.
Yes.
Lauren, maybe you can give us an idea of the services then that you're able to supply, what you can do to help folks out.
Okay. Yes. So for our adults, we offer like job skills training. So if they're going to work and they need, like special tools or equipment or scrubs for, nursing, we can provide assistance with that. If they need a professional license paid for, like a CNA license, we can assist. We can also help, and these are all of these services that I'm speaking about. You have to be on the TANF program to receive these services, to be eligible. We also offer assistance with getting their driver's license reinstated, paying for fines associated with that. And then we also offer like vehicle services, so we can help pay for car insurance, car repairs, car maintenance. And if they need assistance getting back and forth to a job, we can help pay for gas or public transportation. If they need assistance with, like I said before, professional clothing, we can also help pay for that. And so there are guidelines associated with each of those services that they do have to qualify for and apply for those. And then we also offer non-recurring short-term benefits. So those are offered, they have to meet the requirements, but they do not have to be on the TANF program for these services that I'm getting ready to talk about. And those are like housing expenses. We could help pay for rent or mortgage assistance, emergency shelter. If they're experiencing homelessness, we can also assist with that. We can also help with utilities and food assistance. And so with all of our funding, we're the last resort, funding of last resort. So they do have to apply like for Creek Nation social services assistance that they offer.
Let me ask you about housing there, and Braden, jump in. I know you've worked a story on this. Were you able to help people with federal programs, but they do have limits, right? 90 days or whatever it is. Now, is that kind of thing really needed? I mean, do you get a lot of requests or help for that? And what happens when you get to the tail end of what you can do for someone? Now, that's where I wanted to bring Braden in because he'd just done a story there. Anyway.
So for our program, we can assist up to 45 nights per fiscal year. And so once we do have clients coming in and we're assisting, we're also during that time period trying to help them, find other resources. We refer to the Mvskoke Creek Nation Housing Program because they offer different assistance. Whenever the tribe had the CARES money, they were offering like the emergency rental assistance, we would refer to that program. So we're always looking for different resources for our clients.
Now, those resources, what comes to my mind is like perhaps a hotel or motel room for meeting immediate needs. But you don't go as far as providing a house or anything like that, right?
We can help assist with the housing expenses that we offer for the non-recurring. We could assist with helping them pay their rent or helping pay a house payment.
How about emergency needs, like somebody getting kicked out and they got to have this money tomorrow?
Unfortunately, our program, we want to help everybody, but if somebody called today, the likelihood that they would be receiving a payment tomorrow, it really depends on them because they have a lot of guidelines that they have to meet, paperwork that they have to submit. So it's really dependent on how soon they get all their documentation in. But then the likelihood that like they would receive a payment the next day, it probably wouldn't be the next day.
Yeah. So Lauren, just jumping in here, I know you had mentioned you offer some temporary housing services during those windows, regardless of whether it's 45 days, 90 days, whatever. However long it lasts, what advice would you have for people that are utilizing those services within the 45 days? Because I know that sometimes they might come into using that temporary services, and then before they know it, it's up. So just what advice would you have for people that are using that?
I would say don't wait till the day you have to check out to look for other services that are available. Like I said, with our program, we look for other resources to send them to when they're applying. We're offering, asking them to call the 211 number in Tulsa, offering assistance, referring them to different programs within the nation, social services. So definitely don't wait until it's a cutoff notice or an eviction notice to start applying for services that are offered.
Okay, Mark, I want to bring you back into this discussion. Who are you seeing coming in the door when you're watching your crew lining people up for help? I know this is a time of economic crisis. Mm-hmm. Prices are going through the roof, and if you want an omelet, then you're going to pay a whole lot more for eggs. That rules out Eggs Benedict, I'm pretty sure. But it's got to be an expanding population that's coming in for help. So what are you seeing?
A lot of our population that come in, since we are a low-income program, a lot of population they're already lower income or have no income at all. Some may have just started working and they may need that extra assistance that we can provide. And so that's something those are most people that we do see come into the doors. Going back like the economic downturn and even during the pandemic, we thought we may have seen a rise in cases for our program, but our cases actually went down during that time. That was mainly due to all the other services that were being offered by the federal government. And so they were getting those other services. So TANF was kind of put in the back. And so we did have a caseload, but it did get smaller as the pandemic went on. Now that those services are ending, we are seeing a rise in more people coming into the program. And so we have seen probably an uptick of at least 40% more than what we were seeing even last year. And so, because like I said, that's due to all the other services ending the government was offering.
Okay, it almost sounds a bit creepy because you have people are succumbing to COVID. other things like that. If either one of you can give me an assessment, how's the tribe doing then? We've got over 80,000 members now. Do you have a percentage or a ballpark estimate of the numbers of people coming in for help?
I would say we do not have those kind of estimates, especially since we're all federally funded, we service any tribe. So whoever lives within our Creek Nation or just our TANF service area, we do go outside of the boundaries a little ways. We cover a whole county instead of just partial, whichever ones that Creek Nation borders up to. But since we do service all tribes, any federally recognized citizen, it's kind of hard. We do not have that kind of estimate with this.
Right, so if we've got a number of Chickasaw or Northern Cheyenne coming in, then that kind of skews your numbers.
Yes.
Now, when someone comes in, I presume you have to do some sort of analysis. Okay, how many in the family, how many dependents, what's the income? Is there a typical family that's coming in the door for help, if there is such a thing? Could you pick one out or give us a feel?
I don't really see that we ever have actually just a typical family, which, of course, for the program, everybody who comes in, they have to have dependent children. And so, which, of course, I guess that would be a typical family.
Well, okay, yeah.
I guess.
Let's say 2 kids.
Yes, yeah. So the probably more is typically that come in, or at least 2 to 3 kids in the household. So in order, for any kind of service that we offer, there has to be dependent children in the household.
Okay. Let me take it another step. I believe you mentioned, assistance to, I don't know, was it child care providers that weren't the family? I think we're seeing across Indian country, across the nation, a number of situations where young people sort of drop off their kids with grandparents. Now, in the Mvskoke Nation or the services you provide, those folks would be eligible, and then, excuse me, how would you assess their needs?
So we do have our child-only cases, and those are, grandparents that have custody of grandkids or another caretaker relative that has legal custody or guardianship of children. So we do offer a lot of youth services. With our program, one of the services that we offer is like when a child is a senior and they complete high school, they can get an incentive for that. We also request report cards for the kids that are on our TANF grants every 9 weeks. And at the end of each semester, if they make an A or B average or have perfect attendance, the children are eligible for an incentive check for that. And then we also offer school clothing assistance if a client's children aren't eligible through their own tribe school clothing program, they could be eligible for ours. We offer also tutoring, school supply assistance. We offer one called a healthy lifestyle allowance, and that can be used to pay for band equipment, if they want to take swimming lessons, or they play basketball for their school, we can help pay for shoes or any equipment that they might need. So we offer a variety of different services also for our children that are on our grants. We can also, one service that we just started offering that we've never offered before is infant and toddler care. So for our older children that are in school, we offered grooming and hygiene assistance. So they're eligible for that every semester. And then this year we started the infant and toddler care. And we haven't had anybody apply for that yet. It's fairly new, so I don't know if many people know about it yet. But that can be used pretty much like diapers, wipes, anything like that that a baby or toddler might need. And then we also started this year a youth employment activity service. So for our kids that are on our grant that might be working, if they need assistance with clothing for a job, or they need to pay for a license or something for a job, we can also assist with that. So
Now,
those are
let
some.
me ask you. It sounds like there is some potential for abuse in this kind of thing, particularly something in clothing. And, you know, teenager is wanting something more stylish. I understand you can drop $500 on a pair of sneakers these days. Do you try and steer people away from that kind of thing, or say, you know, if you blow your whole allocation on a jacket, then that's all we can do for you?
Yes, when we issue the check to them, they do have to turn in receipts for any
Okay,
service that we offer. So we do see those receipts, and we check into them to make sure that money was spent and everything for that child. So if there's an issue where, like, we issued money for a child, like let's say like a pre-K child, or a small child, kindergartner, and then everything that we see on that receipt is for an adult, then we're gonna take that money back.
Is it tough to collect it?
It's not, because we process their monthly grants every month. So whenever we have a situation like that where we have to take the money back, we either take it back from their next monthly grant, or whenever they do those work participation hours, they can receive an incentive every week if they want, or they can choose to receive that all in one lump sum every month. So we'll take that money back that's owed to us from
So
that.
there is some oversight in how people use your resource.
Yes, there is.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
because since we started in 2008, and so as the program grew, we saw those kind of situations coming up, and so our program did have to grow with that, and so we always had to look at, okay, what can change, and what other services can we offer, and so we know that with the more services that we offered, we know that there's more that we had to look at in order to make sure that it was being spent correctly and on the correct items, I guess, especially for the children.
Right, with the spread of so many designer label kind of thing, and popularity of celebrities wearing something, do you run into that much, or people pretty much play by the rules?
I would say for the most part, they do play by the rules. We do have some cases every now and then where they like that they'll blow, the whole $250 for school clothing on one or two items. And unfortunately, that's all we can assist with for that year, that school year. So
Well, I understand a pair of designer ripped jeans can go for 200, right?
yes.
And we used to be, as a kid, we could get ripped jeans without having to.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's all we had to wear. All right, now, if someone was interested in making an application, what kinds of things must they bring in to show you? I know we've kind of touched on it, but let's kind of concentrate on it. So to be eligible, you must bring in what?
To be eligible, you must be, of course, enrolled in a federally recognized tribe, or at least one person will be called assistance unit, whether it's a parent or a child. We do have several cases where the parent is non-native, but the child is, and so that child does qualify that household to be on the program. So that is one stipulation. Like I said, they must have dependent children. If it is a single parent, they must provide some kind of custody documentation. We do ask for at least 3 proofs. That could be food stamps, that could be WIC, that could be child care or school enrollment verification, just showing that they do have custody of that child. Another thing is Social Security cards. We do require Social Security cards for everybody in the household, and birth certificates. Those are along, of course, with residency, because they do have to that live within the Cree Nation's boundaries, or I would say TANF service area, not necessarily Cree Nation boundaries. And child support is required to be filed in every family case. If there's an absent parent, child support does have to be filed and kept in compliance. Some instances we do require immunizations if the child is 6 and under. like I said, for child-only cases, they do have to have legal guardianship of that child. We can't accept the other three documentation. They must have legal guardianship.
Well, that's quite a case you have to build in there to get assistance. Okay, now we have covered a lot of ground here, and is there anything here that you think you need to mention that we haven't discussed yet?
I would say for the services that Lauren was talking about, like she did mention that, those services that we offer, you do have to be in a TANF program. And what she was saying, the non-recurrent short term, you do not have to be in a TANF program, but it is income based. And so we do look at least 300% of the federal poverty guideline, depending on how many is in your household. So we do look at that. Another assistance that we'd offer is called diversion assistance, and those are for families that are either working or have are about to start working, who've gained a job but haven't started yet, and they may have some kind of barrier that's keeping them from potentially not keeping that job or getting that job. Those right there, that's 300%, but we only count 75% of a person's income with that.
Well, let's take an example here if we can. You've got mother and father and 2 kids. What would be their the cap on their income, where you would say yay or nay?
It kind of depends on which service they're applying for.
Okay.
If they are working and they want to apply, they cannot actually be on the program itself. They cannot, let's say it's a family of 4. They can't bring home we only count half a gross monthly income. So they can't make more than $636 a month. That's just half of the gross monthly. So if they make $1,200 a month, we're going to count $600, but we're also taking off $300 of cost of living off that first check. And so we're not that first check, but off their income. So they could be eligible to be on the program, and then as soon as they come on the next month, they may not get a grant, but they can still be on the program to receive the incentives and other services.
Okay, so if they're only bringing in $600 a month, they certainly are going to need some help.
Yes, yeah, and then those right there, like I said, we're only going to count half of that.
All right. Well, we're going to have to wrap this up now. Let's retrace the steps here now. If someone was interested in applying for your programs, or finding out if they were eligible, or just wanted some further information, how do they get in touch with you?
They could call our Okmulgee office at 918-549-2880, or they could also go online to the Mvskoke Creek Nation website, and under the Community and Human Services link on TANF, when they click on that, there's a list of all their required documentation that they would need to complete an app, and they could see what all they need to bring. So a lot of times that's helpful when they call to schedule an intake appointment with our intake specialists, to have all of that documentation ready. That makes the application process go a little quicker.
Okay, as we wrap up here, I'd like to give you a little pat on the back. You've been serving our people for 15 years now. I understand you just passed that anniversary. Geez, how many people do you think that you've been able to help out?
I did not bring that paperwork, but I did have it on a little handout we did. We're giving that when we had our 15th anniversary little day.
This by any chance?
Yeah, it was in a different piece of paper. I did get all those calculations, but unfortunately I did not bring it with me.
Would you say it's safe to say at least 5 figures?
Yes, I mean, yes, I knew it was, I'm trying to remember exactly, I know it was around at least 60,000 people at the house, not just in the house, but everybody in the household. And so that we do include everybody in the household, so at least 60,000 people over those 15 years. And I know it was at least at least 6 million plus that we've paid out in monthly cash assistance over those 15 years.
Now, you're in a position here to provide services and assistance to people who really need it. How does it make you all feel when you've done your job, so to speak, and someone is getting the help and relief they need?
So before I became the supervisor, I was the youth coordinator for several years for TANF. And during the summertime, I would get to go see all of the kids on our grant. So I would do a summer home visit every summer. So just getting to see those kids, and they would thank me for, and thank the program for providing assistance for services that they may not otherwise been able to do, playing band or being in the band. And we bought instruments, or we have kids who play sports, and we've paid their league fees, really expensive fees that they may not otherwise be able to pay for.
Help them out with a quality of life that
Yes.
isn't dollars and cents, essentially. Mark, what's it make you feel like when you done
Well,
your job?
And since I've been at the program since we opened in 2008. So over those years, I think the biggest thing that I like seeing is the families who actually do succeed in the program, the ones who truly need the help, the ones who they really appreciate it. What we can help them with, what they've actually done. See them truly what we call transition off of the program, and actually keep that job through their however long they've been off.
Sure.
And we have received several compliments in the past from our participants who completed the program. And they thanked us, and those are, again, the biggest things that I think all of us like to see. And those things that we see worthwhile why we do this job.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Well, I tell you what, we're going to have to move on to our next segment here, but thank you, Lauren Randall and Mark Pendergrass, for coming in and sharing this information. And I'm sure until economic times loosen up, you're still going to be getting a steady flow of customers.
Yes.
yes.
Okay, well, Mado to the work you and the work you do.
Mado.
So thank you for coming in.
Right.
All right, we're going to make a short little pause here, and then we're going to bring in my boss, and we're going to talk about how bad press has been received at the Sundance Film Festival. So please stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio.
Hear that? That's the sound of hope being killed by meth. Methamphetamine use is causing huge problems in our community. Hear that? That's the sound of something you can do about it. Events like rodeo, res ball, and family time can help keep kids away from meth.
Talk to your kids. Keep our culture alive. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Learn more at ncai.org.
Who am I? Am I Indian? Just 'cause I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape, but then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am, and I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
There we go. All right, that segment of Dead Air was brought to you by Mvskoke Media. We've got Braden on the board here. He's training to become a substitute or an associate producer here. So sometimes it takes a little second to get the feel for it. Joining us now is our boss, Angel Ellis. Got some wonderful news about an event that featured us in our recent battle for freedom of the press. So welcome, Angel. Appreciate you coming in to talk with us.
Thanks for having me. I feel like I get to come talk to you guys more than when I was actually a reporter. So
We'll fix that. So, we, of course, had another former employee and friend of ours, Rebecca Lansbury. What's her, Baker now?
yeah, Rebecca Lansbury Baker.
Right. She has been spending some time with us and developing a film project that looked at our battle for freedom of the press here at the Mvskoke Nation for Mvskoke Media. And he took it to Sundance, which is quite an honor in itself, just being included in that lofty bunch of folks. So first of all, let's say we're going to be able to share that with our Muskogee citizens at some point. But at the moment, why don't you give them an idea of what bad press was all about?
So the documentary was really an answer to the question of what does a journalist do when they have become in the situation of being in the news. We know the free press for the Muskogee Nation was repealed in 2018, and it was an important issue, but it didn't seem like there was a lot of media really concerned with it. And that's something that's really common when it comes to Indigenous topics and issues. The mainstream media at large is either unaware, they're unsubscribed, they don't really, come into our communities and report on the topics like Indigenous reporters would do. And so I had reached out to Rebecca in my frustration of like, what are we going to do? This is a really dark time for our department. To have censorship come into Muskogee media was devastating, and it drove out some of our staff who were just fed up and tired of it, and it was becoming a really big issue of serving the people and then serving that integrity of the profession. And so Rebecca kind of answered with, let me get together with some folks I know, and she does what she does best. She builds a wonderful and a powerful team, and that's what she did. She built a team that came in and covered this topic through the lens of our department and followed us around as subjects of this documentary. And some of the team, of course, isn't Indigenous, but, they were emerging filmmakers and emerging editors. They put together even more people who, because after they came and kind of dove into the topic, they seen it was like a really broad and important story, and so they hired on other team members. And I think that in the beginning, for me and my perspective, I never dreamed in a million years it would get into Sundance Film Festival. My main goal was I needed the protection of the cameras to advocate for the policy. And so having those cameras come down and kind of shine the light on this topic gave me a little bit of protection, and it gave me a safety net in order to help advocate for better policy. And then they did what wonderful filmmakers do. They made a great film about it, and it got into Sundance, and we all went. I took a vacation, if you call that a vacation, but I took a vacation, went to Sundance with them, which was extremely generous, because having gone to Sundance, it's not every day that a filmmaker invites their subject to come and experience that festival environment. And it was mind-blowing how receptive people were to this topic. And I got to meet with other Indigenous, producers and journalists. There's a lot of buzz in journalism stories right now. So there were other journalists there at Sundance, like Luella, who was, working with the Murder in Bighorn. I got to see other Indigenous films and filmmakers. I got to watch Fancy Dance. Really great stories coming out of Oklahoma. So that was kind of surprising to me to see how many wonderful stories are being captured on film. And it was just a wonderful thing. And then we won a major award. I feel like I'm just like on the Christmas Story. It's a major award. But the Sundance Special Jury Award for Freedom of Expression was given to this film. And it was such an incredible experience. Even the jurors and the staff at Sundance were quoting parts of our film, and they were just excited for the story. And that was just phenomenal, because it's not often as an Indigenous person you see that story, incorporated into other communities. But they drew the parallels. Everybody I talked to was like, it's incredible to see how in a small area this large topic from national journalism has been an issue too, and censorship and freedom of information is something that the whole nation experiences. And so it was very well received, and it's going to be a big year for that film. It's running a festival circuit.
Well, and speaking on behalf of the staff members who are left behind, we'll call it a vacation. I mean, going to Park City, Utah for this world-renowned film festival. Did you get to meet Robert Redford?
I didn't get to meet Robert Redford, but we did. Our film did screen in his personal screening room at the Sundance Lodge, which was I'm telling you, there was a different feel in that room. It was kind of a major thing, because I watched many interviews with Robert Redford as he talks and advocates for Sundance, and one of the things that always is mentioned is freedom of expression. So to have that award given to a film that we were a part of is just blown my mind.
Now, the title "Bad Press," makes you wonder. And now that the project is complete and it's been given some public exposure now, I'm going to ask you to be a critic here, just and not to get down on Rebecca or anyone else. But how well was the story told? I mean, was it really authentic and accurate and get to the heart of the battle we had to go through within our own Creek Nation?
Having lived through it, I know that there's so much of it that didn't make it into the final film, and it's a matter of, in my mind, I feel like they did a great job of narrowing into the topic of the policy of free press, because there was a lot of other surrounding issues that they could have included. But then I got to speak with the editor on the film, Jean, and kind of understand her process and how if it didn't directly affect that policy, they had to cut it out to get it all into a certain time frame. And I think they made magic. I've known Rebecca a long, long time, and she recruited me to first come to the tribe when she was the editor of Mvskoke Media, so I might be a little bit biased, but to take something so huge and condense it into 98 minutes, I just think they really made magic. That was an incredible team working together. They had some of the best people for the job.
Now, I reviewed a section of the film this morning, and I have to say that I was really impressed with seeing myself.
Hey, some of it was filmed right here in this room that we're in.
Yes,
and Gary,
yes.
you were a rock star because
Yeah.
you were asking the hard questions of all the officials.
When I looked at it, I thought, oh boy, here I am in a movie. And forgive me for a little ego getting loose there. But I kind of felt like, those are some of the things that got to the essence of that whole battle was about.
Yes.
And not that I was the only one there, but tough questions aimed at tribal leadership. And we were still in a position where they could have given us the heave-ho.
Right.
And I remember at least wondering whether or not, that was going to be the case. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm too old for this kind of thing to go out and have to find a new job. But I was wondering, I didn't see, I got through, let's say, about 2/3 of it. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if it was going to get any tougher and put another example of that kind of back and forth between us and administration.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of those instances where various people in our department had to make this huge decision. Did we continue with the ethics of our profession, or did we preserve our paychecks? And what you see over and over in that film is there's many of us who just stayed in there and risked it all, like you said, at the age that you are, having to start over. And I've had to do that in my career, just completely scrap and start over. And it makes you wonder about the future of the profession and how you can impact that for the next generation coming behind. Because if we're experiencing it, it's been experienced for 30 or 40 years by the people who've run this newspaper, right? And they didn't always have the luxury of having the connections of getting the cameras in the room. They didn't always have that, citizen support behind them because the citizens didn't know. And really what I think the film revealed is that it takes, almost generations to come and build on something before a story is really ripe to be told. And that the fact that we had so many people stay in the department and commit to the ethics and telling the truth meant that it was at its ripest point. And I'm so grateful that they got the cameras down here and captured that, because we were kind of in a situation. There's a part in the film where I reach out to other journalists trying to leak the story of what's happening, and there's not a whole lot of response. Mm-hmm. And that happens in news because unless somebody's getting handcuffed, right, unless it's an official in handcuffs, the outside news media doesn't really always have the capability to tell our stories.
Oh, yeah, they want a more sensational story.
Right.
I mean, there are
But
at
then
least
what-
one network that's really bad about that.
Yeah, but what is more important? Do you want to show the person in handcuffs for jail, or this really shows the core of the issue? The reason our stories aren't told is because we're not telling them ourselves, and if we're not telling them what's stopping us, because that's like a critical component to healing and to the integrity of the profession is the truth telling in it. And so I think that it was so ripe to be told, and it was, when else will we have this window, this opportunity to give citizens a chance to vote on affecting their own constitution? And that was such a major thing, and I'm so glad that it got captured on film, because there's millions of Americans who will never know what that feels like. And that makes me really grateful to be an Indigenous person.
I probably wanted to, I don't know, I have to go back and finish the film, but wanted to see a couple more examples in there of the more egregious, the outrageous things we had to go through. Now, it touched on the sexual harassment situation that was alleged and denied.
Right.
I actually worked that story and
Yeah.
thinking, there's a lot of, let's say, BS there. But the one that really stuck in my mind is a former principal chief who took a good fall. And one situation where he was put out in the media by the major daily newspaper in our area for messing around on his marital situation, shall we put it delicately.
Right.
And that kind of blew up. And I remember seeing an email that was sent out to all tribal staff from this chief's assistant. I don't know. We didn't really have a press person there
Right.
at the time, but he put something out. And I remember it saying no one in the tribe is allowed to speak of this issue
Right.
except me and the chief. And I'm thinking, good Lord, what am I, that's the most blatant example that I've ever seen. It was this, chief got caught messing around with another woman.
And they want to control the narrative.
Exactly. And of course, as I say, the major newspaper blew that story out, and then we saw that, and I thought, I need to preserve this somehow and use it as an example. And the reason I'm taking the time to do this is because I think that was fairly representative of the situation we had to deal with.
Right, yeah. Because that situation actually landed right in our department. I wasn't there at the time. I've only been able to hear stories, but the extra person who was in that little triangle ended up with a job at in our department. And so
With a $10,000 desk, from my understanding.
yeah,
And a new computer.
So all those instances of absolute abuse of power, the only real defense against them is a person who decides one day that they're somebody and that they're going to tell the truth. And we didn't always have a lot of protection for that in our tribe. And so it could be very difficult to foster that courage and that integrity that it takes to step forward and be the person that speaks out on it. Because really, the moment you speak out, you put your own livelihood at risk.
Now, we've come a bit of a distance since we were blessed with the constitutional amendment, and remember that certainly put some smiles on the folks in our building.
Right.
And I think one of the things that I've always tried to stress among people who ask about it is that that doesn't mean we can take cheap shots at people now that we're all of the binders are off of us and we can do damn well what we please. But I always want to emphasize that with that freedom becomes that huge responsibility. So do you think that was part of the film, and how does it take place here today?
Oh my gosh, the Mvskoke, the responsibility of carrying a story to the public and being the platform. So if you look at this in a big broad picture, is how does the American Indian get written out of history? Because you're not in represented in the archives. And now that we have freedom, we have this huge responsibility to every single time we put out a paper to be capturing an accurate snapshot, because the day is going to come down the road where my grandkids' grandkids are going to look into those archives, and they need to see the struggles we've been through. They need to see how we got to where we are, because over generations these problems come back, right? People in power always try to abuse power, and they need to have their roadmap to be prepared and understand how to battle that. And I think that responsibility, it feels heavier now than it ever did, right? We're out here in this new landscape, and we're forming, the lines in the sand, right? We're drawing the line. And when it comes to free press, and when it comes to free speech, when it comes to freedom of information, there will always be someone who wants to challenge those. There will always be someone in power who doesn't want the general public to have access to all the information. And so this is not something that we can ever take lightly, and we always have to approach every story with that responsibility and the love that we have for our people that we serve in mind, because it's always going to be something we have to stand up on and defend. It never goes away. If it's not the right to do it, it's the funding to do it that you're battling for. And so those are things that, as journalists, in addition to just compiling information, we also kind of are conditioned to understand and know that we're fighting for a standard as well. We're fighting to keep the standard as high as it can be. When in the film you probably saw, we addressed that a lot of experience left our department. No one could blame them. When you're asked to lie or to not tell the truth, that's very much something many people cannot, exist in that kind of workspace. It's not a good workspace. And so when they leave, you have to rebuild. And so now we're in that phase where we're rebuilding, and we have these wonderful journalists who have seen the efforts and seen what we're building here, and they want to contribute to. And I'm just so proud of that, because they're coming from places of, yeah, I could work anywhere, but I want to work here and tell Indigenous stories. And that's a really exciting and powerful phase to be in.
As you were relating that, the challenges we have to deal with, one that always comes to my mind is the sin of omission.
Right.
Like, don't do that story or leave this out, this kind of thing.
Those are the stories that have always haunted me the most, the ones that were just too ill-equipped to handle. And so those are hard to do. We just recently did a really hard-hitting story where a citizen called us, getting evicted and will be homeless. And it's like, if we don't do it, if we turn a blind eye there, have we served our people? Do we love our people enough? And Anagichka kind of like gets into you, and you need to do something. You can't just ignore it. And that drives a lot of the work of journalists. I don't think people always understand the heart of it, but that's where it lies. And so whether it's hard or not, we often sacrifice popularity and friendship to tell the truth. And because omission is not a standard that we want to, we're not comfortable with it.
Let me pull Braden into our discussion here. Now, you mentioned the housing story. I received that call one afternoon and brought it into you, and then Braden actually worked that piece. Now, and for Braden, for you, was that kind of an example of how you carry out your responsibilities? Oh, and by the way, to our listeners, let me congratulate him on being named our new managing editor. So congratulations there, and too bad, sucker. But working that story, I mean, did that kind of embody your responsibilities?
Oh, yes, absolutely, Gary. I think that, that was definitely a hard story to cover. I think mostly from the emotional from an emotional aspect. We are journalists, but at the same time, we're also human, so it's hard not to empathize or sympathize with our subjects. But I would definitely say that is certainly an example of our responsibility of covering hard news of, if there are citizens being evicted, that we're on a program sponsored by the tribe, we need to investigate that or look more into that and see like, well, why is this happening? And how can the tribe do better? Certainly, those are always stories that we are looking out for here at Mvskoke Media. And as my new position as the managing editor, I understand that diversity in news coverage is top priority.
Now, in that position, in the last couple of minutes we have there, what's going to be your direction here? What is your ambition, or how do you see you carrying out those responsibilities? What are you going to do now as the new managing editor?
Absolutely. What am I going to do in regards to moving forward? I think ultimately, we certainly just want to make sure that first and foremost that coverage is, diversity of coverage, but also that news is being carried out in, as soon as possible. We want to make sure that we're covering all platforms. We want to make sure that, obviously, we have the biweekly newspaper, but we're also providing news coverage on social media platforms and, of course, the website. We just want to make sure that citizens are informed and that we are, reporting as accurately as possible. Obviously, as you know, AP style standards as well as SPJ standards, and just carrying on the legacy that you guys have built here at Mvskoke Media. And also whenever recently screening the film, we were talking about bad press. I mean, I was getting emotional, and even though I knew what the outcome is of the story, it was still just so suspenseful, and it really gave me a deeper appreciation for working in a department that has the right of free press.
Right. I remember in the midst of that combat, the crew got together and commiserated. We sat on the floor and sometimes in the lobby of our office and shared our fear. We were wondering what's going to happen now. Is Lighthorse going to come out and escort us out in handcuffs, perhaps, or are we going to be given our pink slips? I remember one of our former staff members called us the Magnificent Seven.
Right.
And I felt like, that's it. We're surrounded. We haven't got a place to go. We're running low on ammunition and
Yeah.
energy, and, hopefully we'll come out and on the right side of this thing. In the last couple of minutes here, any final word from either of you that you'd like to add?
I just want to add that, like, while our department did kind of suffer great loss of experience, it's very wonderful to have this new energy in our department. We're getting close to being fully staffed again, and we're elevating people internally. And that's kind of the mark of where you are when you're getting traction on your rebuild, right? When you have people coming who can help you rebuild. And I love that our newer staff do not have the fear in the backs of their minds that we experienced when we were going through the trauma of all that.
Yeah, we'll fix that. Bryden, any last word?
Not particularly. I certainly hope that if the citizens out there are interested in seeing this film, that hopefully there will be opportunities in the future to see it.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap it up here, and as I do that, we're starting to get notices on one of our greatest functions of the year, the Wild Onion Dinners. Coming up March 4th, Salt Creek Methodist Church in Holdenville will be holding their Wild Onion Dinner, and I'm sure there are others to come. All right, I wanted to say we're glad that they're back, and I'm going to go out and get some tafambachi.
I can't wait. It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Okay, well, then we put another one here in the can, and we'll break Braden in on running engineering our program. He won't be quite so nervous running the mics up or down, so don't worry about that. I think that in the coming future, we're going to try and pull maybe an excerpt or two from the film if we can do that.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be harping on that particular subject all the time, but it is so nice to work in a place where we can do that, fulfill our own personal responsibilities to our profession. And
Absolutely.
we're starting to get some recognition for what we do, too. SPJ gave us a nice little bit a couple months ago, and we're going to recover. And we want to hear from our public too. If you've got story ideas or something, give us a call. We can't guarantee anything and won't, but the more we find out, the better off we'll be. So we'll say that'll wrap it up for us. So join us again for another program, Mvskoke Media and Mvskoke Radio here. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. But